Welcome back. Well, last night, Alberta held its municipal elections. That's basically every town and city. It's not particularly interesting, although Edmonton and Calgary are important cities. But at the same time, Alberta held a plebiscite, really, on who should serve it in the federal Senate. Of course, that's not a decision to be made by the province. That is the power of the federal government. So it's something that Justin Trudeau could certainly well ignore. At the same time, there was a referendum to take Alberta's temperature, really, on the issue of equalization payments. So what would normally be probably an unremarkable evening of local votes has, I think, more meaning. And joining us now to talk about the results is our friend Sheila Gunn Reid. Sheila, how you doing?
I'm great, Ezra. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, it's my pleasure. I am originally from Calgary, but I did spend some time in Edmonton. I went to law school up there, and I did some work after law school at a law firm there, and I got to know both cities. And so I'm very sad to see that a liberal hack named Amarjeet Sohi has now the mayor in Edmonton. I'm not that surprised because Edmonton's a little bit more left-leaning, but Calgary, to see a Naheed Nenshi mini-me successor flatten the so-called conservative candidate, that makes me despair a little bit, because if you can't win a conservative town like Calgary, well, where are you going to win? And I wonder why that is. Do you have any thoughts on why the Liberal left candidates won in both Calgary and Edmonton?
Well, Edmonton, as Ralph Klein rightly pointed out one time when he said Edmonton is a nice city with too many mosquitoes and socialists, and that just comes from being the government town. It's where all the public sector workers are. It's always been left-leaning, even back in Ralph Klein's day. That's just how it is. It's really, frankly, it's a miracle that even federal conservatives get elected there once in a while. So that's sort of a write-off, although it is interesting to see a failed Liberal cabinet minister who was once on Edmonton City Council, Amarjeet Sohi, get elected in Edmonton when he is so upfront about being anti-oil and gas and anti-pipeline. And I think in Edmonton and Calgary, the real winners are probably the Parkland Institute and the Pembina Institute, those left-leaning institutes that get all sorts of municipal money to tell you just exactly how much recycling you need to do and how low flow your shower heads are and how to retrofit your house with things that will make it more energy efficient. But in Calgary, the mayor-elect, Jyoti Gondek, I think she was elected like 16 or 17 hours ago, and she's already talking about declaring a climate emergency in Calgary. And so you know what that means. That means more bike lanes. It means lower speed limits, more expensive and useless recycling scams. Calgary's in for a real wild ride. And I think she will be the leader of the official opposition here in Alberta, even more so than Rachel Notley is, because Rachel Notley is widely disliked in conservative circles. Gondek isn't quite there yet, and if we thought that Kenny and Naheed Nenshi had a prickly relationship, I think it's going to get much, much worse between Jason Kenney and the city of Calgary.
I just find that baffling. I mean, listen, Calgary is a city like any other city, but it is, I think, the most conservative big city in Canada.
Yeah.
It is where Ralph Klein came from, where Stephen Harper came from. Stockwell Day wasn't from Calgary proper, really, but it was sort of a base for him. The Taxpayers Federation historically, the Reform Party was born there. Social Credit, if you want to go back a century now. The Manning Center spent gazillions of dollars. I'm not sure quite what, doing what. Like it's where
that's an interesting point.
Right-wing things are supposed to happen there. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, though, when you bring up the think tanks, because I think a lot of the problem here in Calgary is that conservatives have sort of walked off the field of municipal politics. It's really just a left-wing thing. Conservatives tend to focus on provincial politics and the macro federal issues, but really the government that affects you first and most is the municipal level. And yet, there's really no fundraising for the next up-and-coming conservative leader on that level. the public sector unions, particularly the very powerful municipal ones in Edmonton and Calgary, they dump money into PACs or third-party advertisers to help their preferred candidate. There's none of that happening at the Conservative level. The money just isn't there. None of the businesses are donating to the Conservative organizations to sort of cultivate a new Conservative candidate. And then the business community wonders why they're getting stuck with all these extra taxes when they didn't rally around the Conservative of their choice or, the potential Conservative candidate. But also, I think some of this has to do with the wide dislike.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.